can find the gavel. Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of April 28th, 2021. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm chairman of the board. Mr. Josh Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please? Whitehead serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Whitehead, may I get a roll call, please? Whitehead serves as secretary.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Baker. And Ms. Baker, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Claybrook?
Here.
Ms. Doss? Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Malazri?
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Towns? Ms. Scarlock? And Mr. Chairman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. You may all raise your hands. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
John Jackson, moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Carson, second.
All right. Thank you, Carson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Mr.
Secretary,
Chairman.
will you,
Mr.
hello?
Chairman.
yes, ma'am.
It's Mary Baker. I don't know if this is a good time to interrupt, but I just got on the other meeting. I don't know if anybody else did.
Oh, through
You're now joining the
on
meeting.
your through the Skype.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I've not been able to, but I'm also on the phone now where I can't switch. unless I
Okay.
hang
I'm
up.
good with this. I just wanted to.
No, that's good to know. That's good info for sure. Hopefully it'll work for landmarks tomorrow if it didn't work for us today.
Yeah.
Do you want to just stick with this, Josh?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Well, Mr. Secretary, if you have a secretary's report, if you'll give it to us this month and then explain the procedure for what we're going to do in today's meeting, with it being a strange meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. There's, as we go through this very shortened, abbreviated meeting where we're going to focus in on our consent calendar, I still want to let everybody know that the agenda is on our board's website as well as the YouTube page on which this call is being streamed. That's youtube.com/channel/Division of Planning and Development. And obviously the staff reports are hyperlinked from that. I guess the biggest secretarial announcement will be the fact that this somewhat less than perfectly planned telephonic meeting may be our last, depending on Governor Lee's decision to extend or to not extend the executive order. I will say this, the city council, who we use their space, is going to be meeting May 4th. So well in advance of us, if we do meet in person on May 26th, well in advance of that to work out any issues that may come up. And also we have a land use control board meeting potentially that we could work out any of the kinks. The good thing about being the body that meets at the end of the month is hopefully a lot of the problems are resolved by the time it gets to you. Now, Let's go to the consent calendar. My regular announcements are going to be somewhat abbreviated. And I guess we have a couple cases where we don't have opposition, but we do have, and we may have the applicant on the phone. And as we go to the consent calendar, I want, Mr. Chairman, you to consider if we do have those two people, I'm talking about items number 1 and 2. If we have them on the phone and we know we don't have opposition, they are opposed to some of our conditions, we may want to reconsider making this an exclusively consent agenda meeting. But
Gotcha.
we have some time for that to percolate. So as we go through this consent calendar, these are going to be items where no one has requested that the item be deliberated through a public hearing, that received notice, nor have the applicants contested any of our conditions. And Mr. Chairman, those begin with item number 3, which is docket BOA 2021-20. That's located at 1038, 1040 South Willette. The applicant is Moss Properties. The use district is the R6 single family district within the Roselle-Annisdale Historic Overlay. And staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 4 is docket BOA 2021-32, located at 4515 Aldersgate. The applicant is Glenn Chambers. The use district is the RU1 duplex district, and the request is a use variance to allow a triplex. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 5 is docket BOA 2021-33, located at 1769 Overton Park. The applicants are Laura and Dean Ozier. The use district is the R6 district within the Evergreen Historic Overlay, and the request is a variance from paragraph 272A4 to allow an accessory structure to be located closer to the road than the principal structure. Agenda item number 6 is docket BOA 2021-34 at 267 Berry Road. The applicant is Courtney Munson. The use district is the R10 single family district, and the request is a variance pursuant to subsection 329F to allow an attached garage to encroach into a platted front yard setback and to allow a front facing garage in contradiction of section 391C. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Number 7 would be categorized with numbers 1 and 2. The applicant, if they're on the line, we may want to hear it. There is no opposition, but a public hearing would be required on number 7. So we go with our consent calendar straight to number 8, docket BOA 2021-37, located at 125 East Goodwin. The applicant is William Gary Jr. The use district is R6. The request is a variance from 272B2 to allow a detached garage to encroach into the rear and side yard setbacks, and staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Number 9, we have opposition, but I guess as we become maybe more comfortable with go-to meetings in the next few moments, we can maybe circle back around and see if all of our people who wanted to speak, if they're on the phone, we can maybe consider that as well as 1, 2, and 7. Consent calendar, number 10, docket BOA 2021-39 at 501 Tillman. That's at the southwest corner of Sam Cooper and Tillman, and the applicant is Collage Dance Collective. The use district is R6 with an approved use variance, and the request is a variance from paragraph 497B2 to allow signs exceeding the district's limitations. Staff recommendation is approval of conditions. Item 11 is docket BOA 2021-40, located at 2089 Winchester. The applicant is Glenn Wilson. Use district is the RW Residential Work District, and the request is a use variance to allow the manufacture, distribution, and sale of food products. Staff recommendation is approval with a condition. Item number 12, docket BOA 2021-41, located at 1789 Faxon. The applicant is Catherine Woodruff. The use district is the R6 district, and the request is a variance from 272D1A to allow an accessory dwelling unit. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Docket BOA, agenda item number 13 is docket BOA 2021-42, located at 325 South G.E. Patterson. East G.E. Patterson. There is no South G.E. Patterson. Applicant is 1490 LLC. The use district is the South Downtown Residential District, And the request is a use variance from subsection 723C to allow a self-storage facility and art studio space. Staff recommendations approve with conditions. Number 14 is consent, but as consent as a hold. Late this morning and early this afternoon, we received some notifications from neighboring property owners. We looked at the notice that was mailed out, and we noticed some major flaws with the mailed notice. So number 14 would be on consent as a 1-month hold. That's docket BOA 2021-43 at 4918 William Arnold. The applicant is PAX Memphis Recovery LLC. The use district is RW Residential Work, and the request is a use variance from subsection 252 to allow inpatient care services. And finally, consent as approval, agenda item number 15, docket BOA 2021-44, located at the southwest corner of Jefferson and Manassas. The applicant is the University of Tennessee. The use districts are RU4 and Campus Master Plan 1, and the requests are variances related to a mixed-use multifamily development. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, is there anybody on the board that wants to pull any of those items that we just placed on consent off that agenda? Okay, hearing none, then I'll be looking for a motion from someone to approve as conditioned by staff cases 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as a hold, and 15.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it, John.
Okay, so are there, and so before we vote on this, I'll remind the board that we've all, that, you know, to vote on this means you are in full agreement with the case and its conditions. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook?
Yes.
Has Ms. Doss arrived?
Yes.
Oh,
And yes.
you vote? Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Melasry?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns? Ms. Garlock?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's 7 ayes.
All right, so those cases have been approved. So next, do we want to talk to see if we have applicants on the line for any of this stuff, or does the board have any thoughts on, you know, it looks like we'll be not blind, we can all link to the staff reports, but we don't have, like, I usually follow it by YouTube to kind of see what's going on there as they present it. We won't, and it doesn't look like we have video, at least I don't have any video on YouTube right now. Are there thoughts of what we can and can't do? What do you think, Mr. Secretary? Who do we have on the line that we maybe could or couldn't help today?
Well, let's look at item number 1. Is Mr. Taha on the line? Okay, so we probably need to roll that one,
Okay.
right?
Do we need to vote? Do we need to vote to hold these?
Well, I was going to vote
Once we know?
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
And number 2, is Mr. Baker on the line or Mr. Parks? Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, 1 and 2 could be held for 30 days.
Okay.
And how about number 7? I have Mr. Bray and or Mr. Gordon. Okay.
Josh, I'm here. David Bray.
David Bray's here. Well, hold on, Mr. Bray. Let's go to number 9 so we can expense with all of these maybe cases. On number 9, is Mr. Conway here? Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Conway was the applicant on number 9. So even though we may have opposition on the line without the applicant to
Right.
defend his case. So I think we should probably roll 1, 2, and 9.
Gotcha. All right, is there a motion from the board to hold case numbers 1, 2, and 9 until next month's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, John Jackson.
Be moved and seconded. Is there any, I assume there's no discussion. All those in favor of holding those cases signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. So those have all been held, and so we're just left possibly with number 7, correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody on the, so with one case, do we want to try to hear this? Because we have no opposition and we have the applicant's representative, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
staff is recommending rejection, so we should probably turn it to Mr. Davis first.
Okay, that sounds good. As long as, Mr. Bray's on the line, you're okay with us holding it today, correct?
Yes, we're okay with this being held.
Okay. Wait, well, I say held, but I mean, we're going to hear it, just to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
yes.
I said it too, so, okay, perfect. Mr. Davis, you'll give us a staff report while we look through what we'll just peruse through what we're looking at.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brett Davis with the Division of Planning and Development. We're looking at agenda item 7, case number BOA 21-35. So I'll just give everybody a moment to pull up that staff report since we don't have the slideshow ready to go. And it should be linked in the agenda item 7. Okay, so I'll just go through this staff report. This is a sign variance application located at 3822 Summer Avenue. The owner and applicant is Mr. Marshall Gordon of JD Marks Inc. Realtors, represented by Mr. Bray of the Bray firm. And the request is to retroactively permit 2 non-conforming signs, 1 ground sign and 1 roof sign. And although the application didn't specifically request any variances, staff did do an analysis and find that to do so would require variances from the following sections, and I'm going to go through these. So, as listed on the first page, subsection 4.9.6C, permit the ground sign to encroach into its 10-foot minimum front and side setbacks. Paragraph 4.9.6F2 to permit the ground sign to encroach into the clear sight triangle. Paragraph 4.9.6M2 so as not to require a landscape area at the base of the ground sign, which has not been provided and there's not really room for. Paragraph 4.9.7B1 to permit a roof sign, whereas the residential work zoning district does not permit that sign type, although it does permit other sorts of attached signs. Paragraph 4.9.7B2 to permit both signs to exceed their maximum gross surface areas of 12 square feet each. Item 4.9.7B4B so as not to limit the roof sign to the name of the establishment only. So in this zoning district, attached signs are limited to the name of the establishment only. And paragraph 4.9.7B5 to permit the ground sign to exceed its 5-foot maximum height. The area is just shy of a quarter acre, and as I've mentioned, the zoning district is residential work, mixed use zoning district, even though it does say residential in the name. So we are recommending rejection. Page 2, we see that this is, oh, there's the slideshow. Okay, next slide. So we're looking, this property is located in the Heights, more specifically Grahamwood Heights on Summer Avenue. It has 50 feet of frontage on Summer. On the next slide, we will see a map of those property owners that received a notice of public hearing. It's just north of Lindcrest. The next slide we'll see an aerial photograph along with the zoning map. So it's quite a hodgepodge here on Summer. So there's CMU1, CMU2, RU1. There's another RW to the east, residential zoning to the north, and we see this on the next slide, the land use map. Pink is for office, so the RW district does permit all sorts of offices, so this is appropriately zoned for its use. Okay, and next slide. We're just going to go through some pictures real quick. So this was originally built as a house in the 1920s. It's now used as a real estate office. There we see the roof sign. On the next slide, we're going to see what we've called a ground sign. This is a zoomed out iPhone photo. So we see both signs here along with the asphalt parking in front of the structure. Okay, and then the next slide just shows that ground sign a little closer up and its position near the driveway. The next slide has photographs of these two signs again provided by the applicant along with some dimensional data provided by the applicant. So we see the roof signs 4 by 8 feet, the ground signs 4 by 6 feet with a height of 6 feet and 3 inches, although the lettering height was not provided. On the next slide, we're going to see that survey/site plan. Just showing the location of both signs. And then the next slide is a zoom in, and we did a little analysis that shows that clear sight triangle. So that's between those red arrows is 14 feet. So you could extrapolate that right triangle, and nothing is supposed to be within that. So you see the southern portion of the sign is in that clear sight triangle. And now let's just go through some of our conclusions. Again, the applicant has requested variances from several standards of Chapter 4.9 to retroactively permit 2 non-conforming signs, 1 roof sign and 1 ground sign, at his Grahamwood Heights real estate office. A zoning enforcement citation catalyzed this application. The signs are non-conforming with multiple provisions, including those related to setbacks, roadway visibility, landscaping, sign type, area, content, and height. Now I'm going to discuss the required findings. So as we're all aware, the onus is on the applicant to make the argument that the variance criteria have been met, and staff's job is to analyze those arguments. So the applicant has argued that the lot zoning within the RW district is itself the unusual characteristic that warrants variance, given the lot's adjacency to other zoning districts. The staff disagrees with this finding because a zoning designation is a legislative decision rather than a physical characteristic inherent to the land itself. So if we take a closer look at the unusual characteristics criterion's language, we'll see that it reads, the property is unusual in that it exhibits at least one of the following exceptional physical features as compared to other properties located in the same zoning district. So not only must the unusual characteristic be physical, but its exceptionality is determined by comparing the subject land to other land in the same zoning district. So we find that it's axiomatic that this land's RW designation is not exceptional as compared to other RW zoned land. Additionally, RW zoning, which permits residential and office uses among a couple other uses, commonly appears as single parcel districts throughout the city, just like it does here. So in light of this fact, the subject lot's adjacency to other zoning districts is not exceptional. The applicant did state in the application that he would be content to be similarly zoned to surrounding properties. Staff's analysis found that if the lot were zoned commercial mixed use, the ground sign would still be prohibited because of its location within the clear sight triangle and lack of landscaping, although in this hypothetical scenario, the roof sign likely would be permitted. And staff does find that the 2 signs are not complementary to the principal structure and therefore not in keeping with the intent of the code due to their materials, but especially the roof sign's obscuration of an attractive dormer window. So on the next slide, we'll see our conclusions, our recommendation. Keys. So we are recommending rejection based on both a disagreeing with the applicant's response to the unusual characteristics criterion following a close reading of the code, as well as finding that the signs are not complementary to the principal structure. And then on the final slide, we'll see the recommended condition if approved, which just says that if it is approved, any changes in the future that increase the degree of nonconformity would need to come back to the Board of Adjustment. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Davis, I have a quick question. I'm going back to the zoning map. You know, as you look across, you get the, as you mentioned, like the CMU1 and the RW and the CMU2 and stuff. Why is it so spread out like that as opposed to just being a corridor of CMU something or RW? Have each of those little areas gotten either variances or PDs or something to change the zoning? I'm just trying to figure out why it's not more consistent down Summer.
I think that is just a historical oddity. There have been some rezonings to the east. I'm pulling up the zoning atlas. Yeah, so all properties just to the east of this, the CMU2 just to the east, all the way down to the CMU1 on the other. So CMU2, the CMU1, the RU1, and the CMU1, all of those properties were rezoned either beginning in 1986 and up to 2004. There were 4 separate rezoning applications. The RW district itself is intended to be oftentimes a transitional zoning district
Sure.
between heavier, more intense and less intensive uses. So, throughout the city, RW districts are generally one parcel big, and I
Gotcha.
haven't been around long enough to tell you why that is exactly, but
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay, that helps. Are there any other questions for Mr. Davis or staff? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Bray. If you want to talk to us, you have, at least 10 minutes to tell us what, something about this one. You'll give your
Can you
name
hear
and
me?
address. I can. Will you give your name and address for the record?
David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bray.
And I believe Mr. Gordon is on the call too. We've been trying to communicate to make sure that he. Marshall, if you are on here, can you unmute and identify yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Why don't we go ahead and swear you in? So can you give your name and address for the record, Mr. Gordon?
Marshall Gordon, 3822 Summer Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Y'all are both sworn in. Thank y'all. Go ahead, whoever wants to start.
All right, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Davis for the staff report, and we certainly understand the findings of staff. It's a difficult site on a difficult little stretch of Summer Avenue with a variety of zoning, a variety of uses, and a variety of looks. And based on his staff report and the discussions that Mr. Gordon and I have had, we understand the objection to the ground sign, and don't have a problem with removing that. We would like to point your attention to the point in the staff report where it says, in this hypothetical scenario, if we were similarly zoned to the surrounding properties, the roof sign would likely be permitted. And I believe that's the request that Mr. Gordon wants to make today, and I will let him make that, sort of explain how we got to this point, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, very good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to address you. We've been out here for over 20 years, and I'm just in a sea of commercial uses. I've got Sonic Restaurant, their drive-in restaurant is immediately to the west of me, and I've got a pawn shop across the street from me. So it's high intense commercial uses. Summer Avenue, extremely high traffic, very fast. There are no bike lanes on Summer Avenue. You'll get run over if you get out there. So I've always had a visibility problem trying to direct people to my real estate office. And then that's why about 20 years ago, I put that, what I call a yard sign up, because I was having trouble getting, directing people to my office. There's up east of me, there's people that have the same type of use that I have. They have, yard signs there. So I've definitely got a signage problem. I'm in competition with my neighbors who apparently have a higher zoning than I did. I was shocked. I thought on Summer Avenue, where I am, everything would be commercial, but apparently my mind, it does not provide for that. But I am in competition with those, and I'm at a disadvantage because they can have signs and I cannot. I've got a sign on the building that's got my address on it, and I sure would like to keep that because if I have to have the fire department here, they need the address on the building. So that's what I'm requesting. I'm hoping to be able to compete with people, be able to find me and not go to the Sonic Drive-In, although their hamburgers are good. But that's what I've got. I've got a bad situation in the sense that I'm at a competitive disadvantage. And any suggestions that anybody might have where I could cure this problem, I'm more than open to them. But I've been here 20 years with these signs and nobody's bothered me up until now. Thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Gordon, quick question for you. So you were cited for the sign. Were you doing anything new with the sign, or you just got a citation?
No, what happened was last October, a city inspector came by and said that I hadn't paid the permit fee for the sign, the annual permit fee. Well, I was glad to do that, and he, gave me an invoice. I cut a check in October, and the next thing I knew, a member of he said he was a representative of the zoning commission. He came by and said that the sign could not be kept there, and I have to take it down. And I asked him what I could do, and he said I could file this board BOA application to get an exception for it, which I gladly did. But all the years, nobody said anything. Everybody else in the whole street, and I even showed him. I said, "Please come outside and look at." And he said, "Yes." It did seem rather odd that I was the only one that they were having this problem with, because I wish y'all could visit my site. For blocks to the east and a block to the west. I mean, everybody's got signs like I've got. There's no difference. And across the street, the pawn shop. Headley's got signs all over his building. And apparently, I'm the only one that can't do it.
Yeah, I actually know it well. Oddly enough, I ride my bike down Summer all the time. I just do it really early in the morning before the traffic picks up, because I definitely wouldn't do it right now. So I'm familiar with the site.
Right. Good. Well, you see the signs then to the east and to the west,
yeah,
and to the north and to the south. I mean, I'm in a sea of it, and it wouldn't be so bad if they didn't have signs blocking me. But you can't even, if you ride your bike, you can't even tell my building's here, but for their signs.
Right. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to add, or any questions for Mr. Gordon or Mr. Bray? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. And Mr. Secretary, we don't have any opposition, because we wouldn't be here if we did. I guess what we need to do is get a motion to approve BOA 2135 as conditioned by staff, and then we can get started discussion.
John Jackson, so.
Okay, is there a second?
Carson, second.
All right, thank you, Carson. All right, is there any discussion from you guys?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Ms.
I have
Baker.
some discussion. I mean, to me, it seemed to me like the code enforcement guy gave the applicant the wrong recommendation. I mean, why didn't he just file a rezoning? That way, he'd have the sign that he wanted. And I have a question for staff relative to this. Can I go on and ask that
Yes, ma'am.
question?
Go ahead. You have the floor.
To the staff, if we adopted this variance to allow this roof sign, would that property then be controlled by Board of Adjustment and, really taken out of the other planning?
Damn. After what did it say? After a man with a warrant walked into the barn comes, damn, dude. Fucking Memphis, man.
Mr. Chairman, this is why we chose to go with Skype over Zoom and GoToMeeting in the first place. Just a reminder to all who are listening, if you're not muted, you're not muted.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know that.
But you see my point, and would, if it, just because we did nothing but approve a sign, would we then approve all modifications to the site and so on? I'm just wondering if it seems like the better solution would be to rezone, or make a request to rezone it. Then it would match everything.
Don't get that stuff out in my car, man. I'm gonna make you back about the whole car. Get some in here.
Okay, so whoever's on the phone that has somebody talking about a car in the background, you may want to mute, please. So, Mr. Whitehead, so do you want to answer that or help with that?
Well, the request is not a variance to the use. It's just with regard to the signs. So this would, any variance approved, although it would run with the land, and so any future tenant or owner could utilize these variances. They would only pertain to the signage.
But can I go do a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, absolutely.
I just want to understand this. What if somebody bought it and they wanted to expand the building, which would then normally maybe cause them to have to upgrade everything as far as the landscape and the sign and so on? Would that expansion come back to us as a site plan approval, or would it go the normal route of another piece of property?
Well, Mr. Chairman and Mrs. Baker, there's obviously two kinds of expansion. Unfortunately, the minority of expansions are those permitted by zoning. Right? Most expansions, at least in my experience, need some kind of zoning action. So let's take the first one first. If a future user adheres to all the RW regulations, then that expansion would not have to go through anybody other than our administrative site plan review process. The problem with that, the biggest problem with that is that expansion would also have to deal with some sort of site fixing, because the site today, at least with regard to landscaping, we know does not meet the code. So a by right expansion would involve a lot of retroactive upgrades. But if that was the case, as long as the signs are not increasing in nonconformity, it wouldn't have to come back to you. Now, what if the sign is moved from, point A on the site to point B? We would review that through the minor modification process, and the UDC calls on, when a minor modification to a Board of Adjustment variance rises to a correspondence case. And so we would use that part of the UDC to determine if signs are moving around, as long as they're not getting bigger, but even if they're staying the same size, it could come back to y'all. But in reality, the bigger realistic scenario would be the expansion does not meet the RW regulations. The expansion, it does not involve properly modifying the non-conforming landscaping situations. So that's when we would have a conversation with the owner or the tenant of, hey, you're RW, you're surrounded by commercial on both sides. Maybe this is a good time for you to upzone or do a plan development, or, if he provides justification, file a use variance or some other kind of variance.
Okay, just one more, and I promise I'll get off. What I was
Just
really
one,
talking
Mary.
about.
I said just one. I'm just playing. Go ahead.
You don't believe me. What I'm really talking about is, are we then going to control expansion of the building? What if he wanted to expand the building? Would that come back to us?
If it meets the code, no.
Oh, even though it would be a change to the site plan, would our site plan have his building on it? I mean, this whole thing came up to me recently, and then when I saw this, I thought, wait a minute, we're talking about a sign variance that could leave us in control of the whole property, and that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Well, let's take the sign part out of it for a moment. I bet you any expansion of this property in the RW district, let's say a physical expansion to the building versus a use, most of those scenarios would probably go to the Board of Adjustment anyway. But then you add on to it the signs, and we're not, the site plan is not, let me go to the conditions.
The condition, I'm already there. It says any change to the approved signs that increase their degree of nonconformity shall be subject to approval of the Board of Adjustment. So it's not the full site plan, it's just the signs is the way I would read that.
Right. So if the site plan needs a variance, it'd come back to y'all. If it meets the code for RW, it would stay administrative. However, if those signs are moved, forget about getting bigger, which would be increasing the nonconformity. If they're moving around to a large degree on the site, we would send it back to y'all as a correspondence case. But that's just specific to the signs.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So in other words, we are only deciding on the placement of the signs and not the overall zoning of the property.
Correct.
And we're not going to be left in control of any other changes on the site. Yes or no on that? I mean, that's basically my question.
I think the answer to that is only if they need us to make a thing, but not anything happening there would not necessarily come to us, but it could be they ask for a variance.
If I'm not talking about if they ask for it, I'm talking about as a result of approving the sign, do we end up, it's our site from there on.
It's our baby.
There. Yeah, that's my question.
I would say no, based on what the secretary said. Would that be correct, Josh?
Yes, correct.
Okay, the no is yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. I would like to make a friendly amendment to, right now, the condition allows the signs to stay, but they offered to get rid of the, what was it, the ground sign, and I would like for them to get rid of the ground sign. And so I would not, so my approval would just approve the, so my amendment would only approve the roof sign. Is there any discussion on that?
This is Carson. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any nays?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
And, Marshall Gordon is a friend of mine, and so is David Bray. But I tell you, I was just looking at the 3.0 plan with respect to signs, because I was trying to figure out how many references there are in there. And, there's a particular section on Summer Avenue with a particular recommendation that talks about reducing sign clutter. I mean, it's specific to Summer Avenue. And like I've said, in many of these things, it's the exception becomes the rule. And if you don't, when these things finally come in front of a body, if we don't uphold the regulations, then nothing ever changes. And I believe that the intent of 3.0 is to have our major roads changed in their appearance. And I know this is a small sign relative, and there are other properties that have them, but why not? Why doesn't he just file a rezoning and then he can have whatever is permitted by the rezoning? That's how I see it. So.
Well, I'll give you what my counter argument to that and my thought process was. Given that if he had the rezoning, he could have the sign on the roof and lose the one on the ground. To me, this is where he gets the sign. Well, one, he was told to come get a sign variance by the sign guy. So he kind of got here for whatever reason. Maybe a rezoning would have been a better idea for him long term, because it would have killed more birds with one stone. But that's not where we are. I think I'm okay with the sign based on everything in the neighborhood, and it still keeps the property actually down zoned instead of up zoned. So it seems like I'm not giving away as much as I would, or not us, but as a rezoning would. And that was my thought process on that, Mary. I do understand what you're saying, though. Any other comments? And I'll ask again, is there any problem with my friendly amendment to only approve the roof sign as far as when we vote?
Oh, this is Portia speaking. There's no,
Yes, ma'am, Portia.
yeah, there's no, I agree with the friendly amendment.
Okay.
Though I do have a question, and my only question from the narrative conclusions, it says the signs are non-conforming, including those related to setbacks. But yeah, the content. Is there something as far as the content of the sign that's existing that would have to change, even if it were, I guess, commercial, or if we would approve the roof sign?
So, like, from what you were saying, go ahead.
I guess,
So-
what about the content of the sign, I guess, that is problematic?
Yeah. All right, Mr. Davis?
The zoning district limits the attached sign to the name of the establishment only, which is not the case of this attached sign. The commercial mixed-use zoning districts do not have that same restriction for attached signage.
Okay.
So if it was in CMU, we would, the sign, as we think of the sign as it is, with exactly what it says, would be allowed.
Yeah, the only exception would be if that window were somehow required by the building code for light or ventilation, if that, second story or attic were usable space. But I don't believe it is.
Okay. All right, is that a good enough answer for you, Portia?
Yes, that clarifies things.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote on this with the friendly amendment that we're only approving the roof sign as conditioned by staff. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Unmuted. Ms. Baker,
No.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Doss reported to me that she was kicked off the call, but nevertheless, Ms. Doss? Okay. Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Melandry?
Yes.
Ms. Vice Chair? Ms. Scurlock?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I find the standards for variances in 9.226 are being met.
That's 4 ayes, 2 nays. That motion fails for lack of a 5-vote majority.
Correct. All right, well, we talked about that one, and that's the way we came out. So sorry about that, gentlemen. Best of luck to you. You might want to try rezoning. Might be your better bet than coming through the Board of Adjustment on that. Are there any other announcements, Mr. Whitehead?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Here's the parliamentary procedure. It's been reported to me that the applicants for 1, 2, and 9, and perhaps even the opposition on number 9 have now joined us. So if a member of the body would like to reconsider one or all of those items, we could make motions in that order. 1, 2, 1, then hear it, 2, then hear it, 9, then hear it. If there is a member of the prevailing side of that vote, which is everybody, if a member of the prevailing side would like to make that motion, get a second, and if there's no opposition, then we could attempt to hear 1 or 2 and or 9.
Here's my only, I would love to do that, but my issue is do we only have 5 members still on the call?
6, I believe.
We do have 6. Okay. Well, that's better than we've had before. So I don't have any opposition to that so long as the applicant knows that there's a small number of people to get to 5 votes. Is there any other discussion or thoughts? All right, hearing none, yeah, then we would make a motion to reconsider those, Mr. Whitehead, and we would do that on a case-by-case basis?
I think that would be the easiest.
Okay, so is there a motion to reconsider the hold on case number 1 and hear? Can we make the motion to reconsider and hear it?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to reconsider and hear case number 1?
John Jackson, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Mary Baker.
All right, all those, thank you, Ms. Baker. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Whitehead, if you'll call that case for us.
And let me confirm, Mr. Taha, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is docket BOA 21006, located at 3896 Lamar. The applicant is City Signs, represented by Abed Taha. The use district is the CMU3 district with an approved Board of Adjustment variance. And the request are variances from subsection 4915E and 497D2B2 to allow the digitization of a non-conforming sign. And Mr. Chairman, as you recall, this was held by the body last month for this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Let's see here. Mr. Skinner, do you want to just give us like a quick update on this one? This was our hotel signs, wasn't it, on Lamar?
Yes, sir.
You can just kind of describe what may have changed since the last meeting. I think we were wanting some more site plan info, if I remember right.
Yes, sir. Yes. So I did include an updated image in my staff report that is found on page 13 of the PDF that I'm looking at, hopefully page 13 of what you're looking at as well. I'll be very brief. So this is being reduced 3 feet in height from what you heard last month. So it's going from 55 feet to 52 feet in height. So currently now just only 2 feet over the regulation, which if you remember, that was the nonconformity. And then it is now being reduced from last month's number of 465 square feet of signage down to 314 square feet in size. So it will now currently, this month, only be 14 square feet over the regulation, which is 300 square feet. And then the last update is that we spoke last month on a condition that was to be added for landscaping, just a very typical condition, and that was added as condition number 4. So that's just kind of a brief update.
Okay. And let me ask you this, was staff happy with all those changes?
Yes, I mean, staff believes that this is justifiable. The applicant, is also in agreement. So I felt this was, worthy to bring before the board again this month.
Okay, very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Skinner right now?
Mr. Skinner.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Is there something about this particular sign that, and I appreciate so much you going back and working on this, and I appreciate the applicant too so much, and it's so close to being conforming. I figure there must be something particular about this sign that just makes it where they have to go over a little bit, and I was wondering if you could tell me what that is.
I do believe that it's not the LED portion of the sign. It's the 2 face plates that are below the LED portion, I believe, that are keeping it still over, as well as having that, portion on top that gives the general hotel name. But yeah, I do believe it's those face plates, and because the LED portion will be the new, the completely new portion of the sign, so it does not have that currently. But those face plates, I know they're getting updated, but I do believe that they are kind of already existing on the sign. They're just going to be changed out. So that would be my answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Skinner or staff at this point? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the applicant. Mr. Tahar, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to give your name and address for the record, if you will.
Abdel Karim Taha. I go by Abed, and the address for the business?
Address or where you live, either one.
1638 Red Barn Drive, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016.
All right, very good. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so you got?
Yes.
All right, go ahead and share with us on this one if you'd like.
Okay, it was last month that there was, I guess it was bigger than what they approved, which was around 25. We were going to cover the sides and being part of the sign, where the digital sign, and it says the sign right under it. So it was basically reduced. We're not going to cover it, so it's not going to be part of it. We're just going to have the digital sign on top and that under it. See, on top of where it says Economy Hotel was an arc. If you look at the previous pictures, there was an arc about 16 feet. I got the exact measurement of 16 feet by around 7 feet. That arc is going to be removed. The sign under it also, the one where it's blank white, is also going to be removed. So that's already existing. And all they wanted is to reface both sides, put Economy Hotel, put a digital sign, even though, on the opposite side, the other hotel, it's almost the same measurement of that digital sign, but it's maybe a little bit bigger. Anyways, when you go up more, you see it smaller. That's why they wanted to go bigger. And I explained to them that they can't go with that, to the hotel owners. We're going to have to make it smaller, and we're going to have to make the sign smaller. So that's why I tried my best. And they come in 8 foot, 8 foot each the digital sign. So that's why one of the reasons it's 16, and I can't make it like 15, and if I was to make the top digital sign 16, I don't want the one under it to look bad, and one of it is about a foot difference, or one of, you know what I mean? So that's why this is honestly I think it'll look great like it is now, and I got the measurements and everything else.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Taha?
Mr. Taha, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Sorry.
Absolutely, Mayor.
Mr. Taha, did you heard the question that I asked the staff? Did you hear the question?
What was it again?
And I think you were kind of responding to that, weren't you, when you talked about the common sizes that the sign parts come in, correct?
Yeah. I was just surprised that it was rejected because of square footage, because the one on the bottom is about it's about 15 to 16 feet by 6 feet. So they wanted to do something with it. I just rejected it, told them that it's not within the variance. You guys can't do that. And in the beginning, they had that arc on top also. So we removed a lot of the square footage because they can't do it. And we just stuck with the basics, the digital sign, the sign under it, and the name of the hotel on top.
And it would have been an extraordinary effort for you to get it 3 feet lower and 14 square foot smaller. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the digital sign, they come in 8 foot, 8 foot and 10 foot. They don't come in like where I can actually get the exact. So if it was a box sign, like where it says economy hotel and the Candler event hall, we can make that whatever measurement it is. But if I was to make the digital sign at 16 feet and the other one at 15 or 14 feet, it just looks, it wouldn't look as good, or it wouldn't even look that good, because, they're just kind of big, small, and it wouldn't look as professional. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Taha? All right. Hearing none, thank you, sir. If there's no other questions for Mr. Taha or for staff, I assume you guys are ready to discuss. Is there a motion to approve BOA 2021-006 as conditioned by staff?
John Jackson, so moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Mary Baker.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Baker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir.
I just received a email from Brett saying he think it has already been approved.
Hey, JC, you're right, but you're on the phone call right now. Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Ms. Doss. Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Melandry.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns. Ms. Scarlock.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I find the standards for variances in section 9.22.6 of the UDC are being met, and the case will not be unduly detrimental to the other properties in the vicinity. That's a yes?
Yes, that is 6 ayes. Sorry.
Okay, 6 ayes. Thank you very much for redoing that site plan and working with staff on that, Mr. Taha, and have fun redoing your sign.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Whitehead, do we want to see if the applicant for case number 2 is still on the phone with us?
Before we do the motion,
Yeah.
Mr. Baker, are you with us? And or Mr. Parks? Mr. Chairman, they were having trouble unmuting themselves. Let me try them one more time. Mr. Baker?
Okay.
David? No. Well, Mr. Chairman, we tried.
We can go to number 9 and come back, I guess.
We can do that.
Do we want to see, now let me ask you this, I don't have it in front of me. On number 9, you said had opposition?
Right. I would not feel comfortable proceeding on number 9 until I had confirmation that Mr. Conway, the applicant, as well as Mr. Smith and Mr. Naylor are all on the line. Mr.
Okay.
Conway? Yeah, there's a bunch of callers on the line and they show as unmuted.
But we're not hearing them, yeah.
But we're not hearing them.
Well,
So
if we can't hear them, we can't hear them. So
that's true.
That's my words of wisdom for the day. I think at this point we may have gone as far as we can in this meeting.
And we did better than I thought for a moment.
We did. I was thinking we're going to have a 17-hour meeting next month, but that got everything but 2 things taken care of. So that's great.
And again, Mr. Chairman, between now and May 26th, we're gonna see how City Council runs their meetings on May 4th and May 20th. We'll have 2 council meetings, maybe an additional meeting, Land Use Control Board, and then by the time we get to this body, I feel like we'll have a good game plan on, assuming the governor's executive order is not renewed, on how to get at least the board members in one place to hold the meeting.
Yeah, and based on his orders from yesterday, I would not be surprised if he does not renew that. One quick question for you. You know, when we last met, over a year ago, or really a while back, we were having a meet upstairs. Did they ever finish the work in chambers, or will we be back on the 5th floor again, or 4th floor?
The council chambers has been renovated. It is unknown right now whether by May 20th, or I should say May 26th, whether the council chambers audio and visual equipment will be ready. So there's a good chance that we'll be upstairs on the 5th floor. And if that would be the case, we would probably hold some kind of hybrid meeting where the applicants and the opposition would continue to call in, because that's such a small space.
Okay.
Mr. Baker? Sorry, he's emailing me, but can't hear him.
Yeah. Well, considering we needed several people on that, I think that we're just going to adjourn is my thought.
Agreed.
Okay. So without any other announcements, we're hereby adjourned and look forward to seeing everybody's face next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.